people think that this is the first time this has happened. It's like, this is not the first time this has happened. Maybe it's the first time that something like this has happened at the scale at which we're dealing with it. But this is something which is described in ancient stories. This moment, it's described also. An example is, people know a little bit about the book of Enoch. In the book of Enoch, it describes the world before the flood, like before the end of a world. And one of the things it describes is that these principalities, these higher agencies, you could say, they mingle with humans and they create giant bodies, giants in the world. So we can understand it, of course, mythologically. It's just giants. Like, you can see, all the imagery is fine in terms of these giant bodies that are eating people and that are, horrible and everything. But you can also understand giant bodies as something like corporations, as something like governments, as something like large beings with agency that act upon us and become carnivorous, right? Become cannibalistic, where they start to devour us. And the good, like you said, the good that they promise starts to veer out of control, and we can see the dark side of what that leads to, right? The story of the genie is a good example of this, where it's like the genie is in this lamp, it's in this technical container, and you give it your wish, and it gives you your wish, but it also gives you all the side effects of your wish. And this is something that happens with the increase of power in general. If you increase, so think about it like, you invented cars and we're going to create these things that are going to help us move around faster. This is great. We don't realize that there's a side effect to that, which is the absolute destruction of community. Now there are no communities. So now there are no town centers. Now there are no places where we congregate. Now our friends live an hour away from each other and everybody Zooms all over the place, but you don't know your own neighbor. And so that's a good example of like a side effect of a technical being, that we deal with the side effects later. Now, the problem with AI, not just AI, but also Google and all these technologies which deal with intelligence, is that if you bring that into the world of intelligence, in what you're going to create, you have no idea of the side effects of what is coming with AI. You can see there are some threads on Twitter that people can follow where people are starting to perceive, like everybody's fascinated by all these AI images are being produced, and it's like an epidemic of AI images. But there's some dark stuff down there. Even the way that they're setting up their AI is that they're basically letting the AI loose on the internet and on all of human learning. You don't realize how much dark stuff is there. What is it, like more than half of the internet is porn? And so it's like these AIs are out there eating without any sense of predetermined ethics and morality, feeding on everything that we produce, all the dark stuff and the light stuff. But do you think that's only going to produce light stuff? Like, you think it's only going to produce something that's going to help us?
Well, yeah. And then I think it's sort of like this train that's on track, and people, instead of, the question of morality or of meaning or of purpose is one that's more like a winding path through maybe like a jungle or a forest, something that you can't quite see fully. But I think the train, like with AI and with technology and where it's leading us, in other words, I think people are just happy to hop on board something that's going forward, something that's progressively, progressing through time, I guess.
That seems to be increasing is the best way to, that's all it seems to be. It's like something that's increasing. It's like we can notice that AI is increasing and technology is increasing, and so we think that that's progress. That's not progress. It's movement, but it's not necessarily movement towards progress in the real sense of being better, becoming better people, becoming better societies, becoming better civilizations. But the state, but like I said, this has happened before, and you can see it in stories like the Book of Enoch. You can see it in different stories that were told right at the outset of modernity, with stories like the Golem, for example, of Prague, or stories about Frankenstein, where the Golem of Prague is a great example, where it's like we create this big mechanical being that is an extension of our will, but is very powerful and is there to defend the city. At some point, you lose control of that, and then it starts to destroy the inside.
In some ways, I feel like man, or man's sense of self, is almost the original version of that, as in your own ego can become the giant, the self-cannibalistic giant. And well, I sometimes wonder, like, well, is the ego, is God and the devil inside each person in the form of the self versus the maybe higher self, or the selfless part of your soul? Well, on a more like scientific level or philosophical level, I guess, one guy I listen to a lot is Terence McKenna, and he talks a lot about how science has kind of led us astray, because what people call science is actually just one sort of methodology of deductive reasoning. Whereas let's say you throw a rock in a pond 100 times to determine that some quality about the rock and its interaction with the pond. And you need to, you do this so that the 101st time it's going to have the same effect as the 100th time, right? But he talks about how he reasons actually that intuition and intuitive reasoning is a much more is a different way, where it's like the quality of something can tell you something, because it's this view that everything is connected in some way, so that the quality of one thing can inform you about the quality of maybe all things, or of all similar things. And so it's like reasoning based on past experience or through patterns seen throughout nature. And in that way, he says that the universe is within your reach, that through direct experience, there's a primacy of direct experience, which is everything, which is all the cosmos.
The primacy of direct experience, that as people, the real universe is, within your reach, always. Everything not within your reach is basically unconfirmed rumor.
I thought that there was a parallel between that and this because I went to a private Christian school for much of my life, and one thing I always heard was the kingdom of heaven is in everyone, or something to that effect. Like,
what God desires is here and here, and what you decide to do every day, you will be a good man.
we all have access, the keys to the kingdom of heaven, and and then you talk about the head being the crown, being the sort of the place where you access heaven. I feel like this is all kind of one message of saying that whether it's through reason, through scientific means, through whatever means, there is a gateway between our ears that we can sort of tune into this higher being, and that the way to be is not through, well, the thing with technology is that it's this externalized material way of trying to get to a higher being. But perhaps the message to take from the fall, the message to take from a lot of these stories is that we have everything we need already, and that actually it's more like man versus self, or something even higher than that's going on here, rather than like man versus nature, or these physical barriers that we think we have to overcome.
Oh, I think your intuition is right. I think that what you said in terms of the idea that the cosmic conflict is happening inside you, this is something which is completely in line with what the church fathers would have said, or what most Christians who are thoughtful would realize. But it also plays itself out at all levels. So that's one of the reasons why we talk about how the Bible is a pattern, but that pattern is like think of it like as a fractal pattern, like as a self-same pattern, which applies at every level that you can recognize as having unity. Anything that you can recognize as having unity will participate in that pattern. So there are wonderful sayings in different traditions. For example, in some of the Taoist sayings you find in Buddhist sayings, where it's the idea that if you align yourself, the secret is to align yourself. Like if you align yourself, and things will flow out of there, like things around you will start to align. And so there's an analogy between you, like if you're a good citizen, that's the way to make the city a better place, right? And that it moves up. Like if you want a good family, you have to play the role in your family that you think that you are playing. Like if you want to have a good family, you have to be a good father. There's no other way to be a good family besides being a good father, besides being a good child, besides being a good wife. So it's fractally true. It kind of stacks up that way. And so the image of a cosmic struggle is true. It's a cosmic struggle. you're right that that cosmic struggle has to find its solution in your own self first before you do anything else. Because if you don't have that alignment in you, then you'll spread your disorder. And you can see that in ideologically possessed people, which is that you see like a lot of the political activists are completely out of whack. Like they're clearly mentally ill or they're mentally unstable, and they try to find all their solution outside of them in changing the political world, sometimes through violence or through major activism, but usually they bring their disease into the political sphere. So I think that your intuition about that is right.